Larry Hausner here, the author of Save Baseball, a prescription for the major leagues. You can pick up the book anywhere online. Order yourself a copy today. I think it would make a great Christmas gift for you. Treat yourself or your loved ones as well. The baseball fan in your life would enjoy it greatly. Today, I'm coming to you from, take a peek behind me, it is Fort Myers, Florida, the spring training home of the Minnesota Twins, kind of making my way around the Grapefruit League about 2 months before they get back in full swing. So, speaking of my book, I am often asked, so where did you get the idea for your book, Save Baseball? Well, it started with a conversation with my son, who at the time was 16 years old. He's now in his 20s. But I had asked him if he wanted to attend the Major League Baseball All-Star game on his 16th birthday in San Diego at Petco Park. I mean, we're Padre fans. He grew up in that area. We went to Padre games all the time. We love Petco Park. What a great way to spend your 16th birthday. But when I proposed the idea to him, he said, "No, Dad, baseball is boring." And we were driving in the car at the time, and I literally almost drove off the road. Of course, I think he was just kind of being a 16-year-old at the time, but perhaps maybe he at that time felt baseball was boring. Today, he's a huge baseball fan, probably more than I am, certainly a lot more knowledgeable. But when he said those words to me, it really struck a chord. I thought, how could somebody who grew up playing baseball, attending countless major league games all over the country, and loving the game would think that baseball is boring? So I started to process that by coming to the realization that, well, potentially there was a generational gap with baseball. And the idea concerned me about its future. And the more research that I started to conduct on the subject, well, I learned a few things. One, that the average Major League Baseball fan is, guess how old? 57, not 16. And while I've loved the game since I can remember, not everybody, especially Generation Z or millennials, shares that same sentiment when the average age is, well, close to 60 years old. That's concerning. As my research dove into generational study and how those generations today consume sports, well, like everything else, it's much different than I do and people in my age group, the Gen Xers. So no surprise that they do consume it in small bites, much like their social media provides. The research then started to move into not just a generational study, but what's going on with baseball, where the average fan is not in their 20s, in the 30s, or even 40s. Those fans are seemingly turned off by Major League Baseball in lieu of something that they would rather spend their time and money on, which begged the question, what is it that baseball lacks for them? And so the research just kept continuing. And it unveiled that Major League Baseball is hemorrhaging fans by the millions. And that's not new. Neither is the fact that fan interest is on the decline. For example, surprisingly, before Shohei Ohtani arrived on the scene, when I was conducting the research for my book, out of the top 100 most popular athletes in the world before Shohei, no baseball players were on that list. That's a shock, isn't it? Or is it? Well, the game of baseball itself, the actual game, the way it's played on the field has changed in the last 10, 15 years, and not necessarily for the better, which has turned younger fans away from the game. Specifically, I'm talking about we're swinging for the fence every time up, And as Buck Showalter told me when I interviewed him, we've lost the shame of striking out. That's not the way the game is played, at least the way it used to be played, where we moved runners along. There was a little bit more um, thought behind the action in terms of strategy. And now it's just grip it and rip it. So younger generations have stated that, well, the game just moves too slow for them. And thankfully, Major League Baseball did something about that. They made some changes in the last couple of years to help overcome the pace of play. Interestingly, in my first draft of my book, I actually had about 80 pages written a lot about that. A lot of people I interviewed had brought up pace of play. What were some of the ways they could get around it? We knew they were kind of test driving it in the minor leagues. But by the time that I wrote the book and it came out, well, Major League Baseball had instituted the pitch clock. So I'd, of course, take all that out of my book because I was saying it is something they should do. And it turned out they did it, which I'm happy they did. So it has definitely reduced the length of game time. It's moved things along. Among one of the things I found that younger fans really do enjoy about attending Major League Baseball games, since I talked about attendance a moment ago. So those who follow it and attend games from the Gen Z and millennial age groups, they love the social aspect if their stadium provides that opportunity. So they're not going to go and sit like I do at a baseball game and watch every pitch, analyze it, what's happening, look at the defense. I mean, most of the fans in those generations would prefer to watch the game along with a social aspect to it. And those who have done really well at creating that experience have been the Orioles, Pirates, Padres, where they've provided opportunities for fans not just to be, prisoners in their seat, but be able to stand and mingle and share a spacious area of the stadium while still keeping an eye on the action. Those are fun atmospheres. I've been to all those ballparks and others where fans can socialize. And, an interesting one that I went to just recently was Cleveland. They've done it right. They've done a little remodeling, but boy, they've got such a great atmosphere for their fans to stand, watch the game, socialize, both down in the right field corner and the left field corner on the lower level. It's phenomenal. The Padres, I mentioned a moment ago, they have a new experience out in center field, and they've always done it really well with their areas of socializing and hanging out. But boy, it's a new area as of this last season. It's unbelievable. If you go to a Padres game a couple of hours before the first pitch, it is absolutely packed. There's a buzz, and it's the place to be in San Diego. It's a happening spot. There's thousands of people enjoying themselves. And once the game starts, some of them, yeah, they choose to make their way to their seats, but others, they just hang out in the outfield and enjoy one another's company and the game. However, there are so many problems that are plaguing Major League Baseball, and I cover them in the book, and I'm not going to do it right here in this space today. But I actually provide solutions to the issues. And that's really the foundation of the book. I wanted to be able to say, hey, here's what's facing Major League Baseball, but more importantly, offer some solutions to overcome them. And some of those opinions were mine, but most were those that know far more than I do about Major League Baseball, those closest to the game. And I'm going to go deeper into some of those on the channel. I've talked to a couple of them already, but that's going to be woven in and out of contemporary baseball issues. And again, I'm going to provide those solutions that the experts in the game told me. And I'm a former sportscaster, and I covered baseball for the Angels and Dodgers, and I was also a minor league broadcaster for a number of years as well on radio. And for this project, this book project, I leaned on those that know more about me than I do about the game. Many of the people I interviewed for the book were people that I knew in the game when I covered it. And of course, it was a lot of fun because once I talked to one person that I knew, they would often suggest, hey, talk to this other person. Sometimes I knew who they were well known, and sometimes I didn't, but they held a prominent position in the game. So they would suggest talking to them. And it kind of was a snowball effect. It led me to talk to some amazing and interesting people, from managers like Buck Showalter and Joe Maddon to current players like Justin Turner and a plethora of other executives that you've heard of, and who all had an opinion, all of them, on how to overcome the issues MLB is facing. And one thing I came to learn, no surprise, people love to talk about baseball. Normally, I would thank them before the interview and say, hey, we're going to spend about 20 minutes together. And quite often, it would go far beyond the scheduled time that we had put on our calendars. Case in point, both those managers I just mentioned, Joe Madden and Buck Showalter, who each spoke to me for more than 2 hours. That was amazing because, of course, we talked about some of the things that I was interested in for Save Baseball, but we also talked about other things that, well, I just wouldn't be able to publish, but it was really cool to have their ear and their voice and their experience for a couple hours. In fact, after my book came out, Buck called me and he wanted to congratulate me and wish me luck on it. But he also said, I want to just thank you again for not just giving us the answers to what you think baseball should do. You leaned on us, those that know best. So that really meant a lot to me. So stay tuned. Over time, I'm going to go deeper into those areas in the book, not just the topics, but others as well, as I said, in the current landscape of today's Major League Baseball world. It was interesting. I was wearing a shirt like this, of course, my logo here. And I was out in public, and a gentleman stopped me and he said, Save baseball from what? And I replied, from becoming a niche sport. And that's my concern. And that gentleman nodded and he said, that's a concern, isn't it? It is. But together, you and me, perhaps we can help move the needle and overcome some of the issues, such as sagging attendance, declining fan interest. Let me know your thoughts. I would like for you to comment, subscribe, like, and share. And as always, until the next time, for the love of the game, I'm Larry Hausner.